Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to another episode of Chapter and Verse. And I am been for over 200 and some episodes. I've been the host of it, but basically that just means I'm the guy on the screen. And so I want to be able to welcome everyone to being a part of this. This is going to be a bit of a unique episode for me. I'm going to be trying to do something a little different here today, and we're going to see if it even works. So, if you could help me out and just say hi in the comment section, that makes things awesome for me because then JB, look at this. You are just crushing it. You are crushing it right now. So, welcome to I think you are maybe close to the top place of the useless points. Leaderboard. So there you go. You'd be proud of that. So, anyways, want to welcome everybody who is jumping in, whatever time it is, and whatever time, season, year. It's getting, it's not as bright this morning, and I'm noticing that it's coming that way, and so I'm getting a little nervous to see whether that's going to stick or not. But anyways, it is really good to be with you and a part of this process of walking through acts together, and so I want to be able to jump in on that. But before I do that, I just want to say that you have an opportunity. I'm going to put in the comment section a way that if you want to know that videos are coming on, then you just hit and it'll change your notifications. Like it's just I'll do that way. If it's like, oh, here comes another video, or I don't want to, or you get the reminder, or whatever it is. So just for that fact, just know that. Anyways, I am going to do the paperless version of today. We're going to try this out and see if I can do that. So this will be a first, and hopefully it won't be the one and done kind of, oh, we tried that idea and it didn't work. So anyways, let's pray, and then let's jump in to the chat here today. So God, I want to thank you for your continued word and how it changes our lives and speaks to us. And I just ask that you would help us to be able to glean from it and learn from it, and understand more about us as humans, as well as our relationship with you and others. We ask all this in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right. Okay, cool. So right now we are in just finishing up chapter 27, and we're about to go into chapter 28 here. Or yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool to be able to do that. Go into chapter 28, but no, we have a couple of chapters to do before that. But I'm going to read chapter 24, verse 27, and then that way you'll be able to see where we're going from here. Okay, so verse 27 says this. It says, after 2 years had passed, Porcius Festus succeeded Felix. And because Felix wanted to do the Jews a favor, he left Paul in prison. Okay, so for 2 years, Paul's just stuck there, and now we have Porcius Festus that comes in here to do that, because his job was to bring order to the region, because Felix had just kind of butchered it. And so now here comes Festus. But here we are, chapter 25, baby. Okay, here we are. We are coming down the backstretch of our look at book of Acts. Okay, verse 1, here it goes on, and it says this. It says, 3 days after Festus arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. Okay, so verse 2 says, the chief priests and the leaders of the Jews presented their case against Paul to him, and they appealed, asking for a favor against Paul, that Festus summon him to Jerusalem. Okay. They were in fact preparing an ambush along the road to kill him. So, okay, so let's just put things in perspective. So there were some people about 40 of them, that said, you know what, we're going to take a vow and we're not going to eat until Paul is dead. Okay. And now it's 2 years later. I'm not sure if they broke their hunger strike or anyways, these are not the same people. Okay. Just unless they broke their fast and they're coming back in and they're saying, okay, now is our time to do it. I'm not really sure. But you can tell, anyways, at least with there being 2 years later, they are still chomping at the bit to get this thing done, to get Paul killed here. Okay. So, but they had asked him to come to Jerusalem. But it was basically to say, can he be tried in our system? Okay, in the way that we do things. Okay, anyways, let's keep going on. It says this, verse 4 says this. It says, Festus, however, answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself was about to go there shortly. Therefore, he said, let those of you who have authority. Okay, this is going to be interesting. It says, therefore, let those of you who have authority go down with me and accuse him if he has done anything wrong. Okay, so what we see here is Paul now, he is appealing to the appealers, or it's not Paul, sorry, Festus is appealing to the appealers. He obviously knows the backstory. He knew what was going on because he knew about the corruption. He knew that the guy before him, Felix, who was there before him, was a money grabber. And so he was waiting for Paul to buckle, basically, and to give him money. And so he was basically saying to Paul, well, if you're not going to give me money, I'm just going to keep you here. And so it's been like 2 years, and Paul hasn't changed, and he hasn't, pardon the pun, he hasn't changed. Okay, but yes, he hasn't done anything to change things here. So he knows the backstory about whatever. And he also recognizes that a number of the complainers had no authority to be able to be speaking about these sort of matters, right? So he was kind of weaning out the people who actually had the right to, or the authority or the permissions, however you want to look at the word, to be able to say the things they were saying, and then everybody else. And so I just want to make a reminder to everyone today that not everyone with a voice has authority. That's a thing that we need to understand. There are a lot of voices out there, but not everybody who has a voice also has the authority behind the voice. And as you may have known from conversations I've had in the past, authority is never taken, it's always given. It should never be assumed. It is always given. Authority is given, power is given. And so we really need to choose wisely who are going to be the voices in our life. Okay, talking about. Okay, verse 6 says this. When he had spent not more than 8 or 10 days among them, he went down to Caesarea. The next day, seated at the tribunal, he commanded Paul to be brought in. When he arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him and brought many serious charges, catch these words, that they were not able to prove. Okay, so I'm just really thirsty this morning. Okay. Dry throat and dry mouth, anyways. So verse 7 says this. It says, when he arrived, the Jews had come down from Jerusalem, stood around him, and brought many serious charges that they were not able to prove. Okay. And I want to be clear here that you've seen it in politics, you've seen it in character slashing and in just maligning people's reputation, right? That really false accusations are not to prove that something is wrong as much as to pretend that something is wrong. When they are making these accusations about what Paul was doing, that he desecrated the temple, all these things, they were not factual. Okay. But, well, I was told by a friend and I trust a friend and I was told by a friend, right? Or just to just color the commentary and make things a little differently. But it's not to prove that something actually happened wrong. All it is to pretend that something was wrong and to get that doubt. Because again, I've said it before, that is the enemy's loving strategy, is just to bring confusion. If he can bring confusion, he can bring division. Okay? Verse 8 says, Then Paul made his defense. Neither against the Jewish law, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I sinned in any way. Okay? Not against the law of the Jews, not against the temple by those accusations, nor against Caesar have I sinned in any way. The truth is, like, can we say the same thing? Like, Paul is saying, no one has anything on me. Okay? I haven't broken any rules anywhere. I just thought that's pretty outstanding. Okay? Be able to say that. It says, but verse 9 says, but Festus, wanting to do the Jews a favor, okay, he wanted to expedite the case. He didn't want to expedite the justice. No, just the case. So wanting to do the Jews a favor, replied to Paul, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem to be tried before me there on these charges? Paul replied, I am standing at Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, and even you yourself know very well. And then if then I did anything wrong and am deserving of death, I am not trying to escape death. But if there is nothing to what these men accuse me of, catch up. No one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar. So I want to read this verse again because I think we missed something in here, that what Paul is getting at. Paul is just not, Paul is actually, he is stating a case here. He's giving a warning. In a way to Festus here. But let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so it says in verse 11 or verse 10, it says, I'm standing at Caesar's tribunal where I ought to be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, as even you yourself know very well. If then I did anything wrong and am deserving of death, I'm not trying to escape death. But if there's nothing to what these men accuse me of, no one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar. He's saying, this is a Craig McKibben version, if I'm guilty of something, string me up. Okay, like you know very well. If there was something wrong, then kill me. But in the case that I've done nothing wrong, I cannot be set free in Jerusalem. Remember he was saying, do you want to come to Jerusalem and we'll try it there? And Paul's basically saying, nothing good's going to come out of me going back to Jerusalem. Okay. I can't be set free. No one can give me up to them. Okay. I appeal to Caesar because I know that if you try me in Jerusalem, there's going to be nothing wrong. They're going to let me out. Remember, all these people, well, if it's the same people or different people, there's a bunch of people that want him dead. And so he's like, this is a travesty of justice. I appeal to Caesar, which I'll get to in a second. So it says in verse 12, this is, then after Festus conferred with his council, he replied, you appealed to Caesar you will go. Okay. I thought of calling this, I was like, to Caesar's house we go. Okay. Anyways. But let me bring this into a bit of a culture corner here, that Roman citizens had the right to appeal their case to Caesar. And you'd say, wow, that's pretty impressive. Like, then how many people see Caesar? It's the Roman Empire, right? It would be super costly to do that, right? Because remember, you are sent there and then you're detained until you are tried. So during that detainment, you're in a prison. Your prison's not a sentence. It is like where you are before. It's kind of like a detention center. So the problem is that you have to be able to fund that. You have to fund the food. You have to fund the lodging, the travel, all that sort of thing. So this idea of appealing to Caesar, it is not very, I'd say it's not probably was not used as much as we would kind of expect from this. Also, this does fulfill what God said would happen in or chapter 23, verse 11, about God saying, "No, I want you to go to Rome," right? But I wanted to point out something here, that it's interesting that Paul is trusting God to work through the legal system of Rome. He sees the bigger picture here. That God sees what is transpiring, and for Paul, he's saying, like, this is the better route. Like, he's trusting God. You know what? This is going to work going through this process. Okay, let's keep going into verse 13 so that we finish somewhere on time. Okay, so verse 13 says this. It says, several days later, King Agrippa and Bernice, oh, what's going on? Okay, arrived in Caesarea and paid a courtesy call on Festus. So here's the problem. I really would love to. The analogy would make the most sense talking about a king and a queen, but Agrippa and Bernice are brother and sisters, so I don't really know. You could say prince and princess, but they're kind of a big thing because like they're the top dogs. So you would, anyways. You've got King and Bernice. Okay, King Agrippa and Bernice here. They're the king. They're royalty, but they have no power. They have no power because the Romans are in charge. So it's maybe you could say it's a little bit like Britain or something like that. Or like it's just that the power has shifted, but you've got Agrippa and Bernice in this place of perceived power. Okay, and it'll be interesting to note that as we go through. Okay, verse 14. It says, since they were staying there several days, Festus presented Paul's case to the king, saying, there's a man who was left as a prisoner by Felix. When I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews presented their case and asked that he be condemned. I answered them that it is not the Roman custom to give someone up before the accused faces the accusers and has an opportunity for their defense against the charges. So very similar to our system. So nothing really is needing a lot of explanation here. Verse 17 says this. So when they had assembled here, I did not delay. The next day, I took my seat at the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought in. The accusers, verse 18 says, the accusers stood up and brought no charge against him of the evils I was expecting. Okay, so I was really expecting a lot of stuff, a lot of things to hear here, which I find is interesting because it's like all pomp, but no power. Oh, all the hype. And you've seen maybe one or two of these in your lifetime where you watch a trailer to a movie and you're like, oh my goodness, this movie's going to be amazing based on the trailer. And then you get into the theater and it's like, okay, the only amazing parts of the movie were the trailer. So like I could have enjoyed the movie just seeing the trailer. Like there's like it was like all hyped up to be this amazing thing and it didn't come through, right? So here, this is kind of what Festus is saying. Like we went through the whole process and there was nothing really. Says they brought up no charge against all the evils I was expecting to hear. Okay, verse 19 says, instead they had some disagreements with him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus, a dead man Paul claimed to be alive. Since I was at a loss in a dispute over such things, I asked him if he wanted to go to Jerusalem and to be tried there regarding these matters. But when Paul appealed to be held for trial by the emperor, I ordered him to be kept in custody until I could send him to Agrippa or send him to Caesar. So you have King Agrippa who responds to this, says to Festus, I would like to hear the man myself. So Festus says, tomorrow you will hear him. So I find this You know what? I'll wait a bit. Hopefully we'll have time to talk about that. Okay, verse 23. Let's just go with this. It says, so the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp. That's why I call this pomp and power. There's all pomp, but no power, right? It's all this. You've got these accusations about Paul, all the pomp, but no power. Now you've got the king of the Jews who has no power because the Romans are in charge. So they come with great pomp and entered the auditorium with the military commanders and prominent men of the city. This is like the A-list party, okay, that's taking place. It says, when Festus gave the command, Paul was brought in. Then Festus said, King Agrippa and all men present with us, you see this man. Okay, boy, hold on. I did not do a good job there. Let's try that again. Then Festus said, King Agrippa and all men present with us, you see this man. The whole Jewish community has appealed to me concerning him, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he should not live any longer. Catch this part. This is verse 25. I found that he had not done anything deserving of death. But when he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to send him. Okay, so let me give you the Craig McKibben version of this. He says, I was going to set him free, but dog went and appealed to Caesar, right? You're just like, the guy was going to be set free, but then he just like went out and just pulled out all the stops and appealed to Caesar. It would have been great here. But I don't believe that Festus really would have understood what was happening in that Jewish culture. Again, you've got this part here that that there's this pomp and all this push, but there's no power behind it. There was nothing there deserving death. But because he appealed, then we're just going to move on to the next thing. Okay, verse 26 says this. I have nothing definite to write to my Lord about him. Therefore, I have brought him before all of you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after this examination is over, the actual word there for examination is it would be the best way to use is like a forensic investigation, or it would be used like for an autopsy. It is like a very, very involved process of checking the body or checking whatever it is you're investigating. So here he's saying after this examination is over, I may have something to write. Okay, for it seems unreasonable to me to send a prisoner without indicating the charges against him. Okay, so there's going to be a bit of an irony that's going to come up in a minute, but let me kind of back up here. So you've got this idea that that Festus is saying that Paul has done nothing wrong, right? But they are still up in arms. And so Festus is trying to understand the Jewish condition, what's going on, why it is that they believe so strongly about this. So in having King Agrippa there, he's kind of leaning into this and saying like, help me understand this, help me put this through. And so by bringing him before you in front of everybody here, that after this examination is over, you'll be able to help me put something in writing here, okay? Because it seems unreasonable to me to send a prisoner off without indicating the charges that are against him, okay? So, but think of the irony that's taking place here right now. You've got the Roman governor, okay, who we have not yet seen the pomp, but he definitely has the power as the governor of that area. So you've got Festus, who he has now appealed to King Agrippa, who has the pomp but no power. Okay, so now catch this. He is seeking to get information from the King of the Jews about the King of the Jews. Like, here's the irony that's taking place is that when Festus is trying to ascertain what is actually the big deal here, what's the big problem, it's almost as if what Festus is saying is that Paul's life and his lifestyle and his relationship with Jesus, the King of the Jews, there's nothing wrong with it. And it seems as though these other people are kind of standing in the way. These other people are crushing the fabric, and so if there's a problem going on, it's really with these people, the King of the Jews and the Jews at that time. So here's this irony that's taking place in this situation. Now you're going to see as this thing kind of moves along that the story is going to change quite drastically. We've only got like 5 more sessions, and I'm like really surprised that we're kind of at that place, and it's kind of a sad thing to think that that's where things are with that. And I've thought about what to do after Acts, and I'll throw out some ideas maybe in a post or something like this. And you can always send me some messages on this. Like I maybe it's run its course. Maybe this is the end of what we're doing on Saturday or on Thursday mornings. So like put in the comment section whether this is something that has been helpful to you or anything like that. Okay, so but as I bring this up, I just noticed something I got to grab here, but I just want to point out a few things here. The first thing is that I think it's really cool that we see that this providence that takes place where God is using his sovereignty and using a different form of power, okay, to be the thing that powers the gospel, right? That it is something that we can trust that God is in control even in the situations that we're in, right? The other thing here that I think that is really cool is that there is a theme that's been taking place through Acts, and we really haven't taken time to talk about it, and that is that the gospel has been really shared not only in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and what we're seeing now to the ends of the earth as Paul is going to make his way towards Rome, but I love the fact that the gospel is being shared with every socioeconomic level. That you have people like people getting healed and hearing about Jesus in Acts 5 with the in the colonnades where Peter is like, silver and gold have I none, but what I do have, so like we see the cripples, the people who are the cast-offs, the people who are untouchable, the people who would be ostracized. But then it goes all the way to the gospel being shared to the governor, to the king, to all of these people that are in high royalty. And this is important for us to catch, is that the gospel of Jesus Christ, it transcends every socioeconomic group. Everyone needs Jesus. And Carrie had been really, really instrumental in this. We were having this conversation. I know I've talked about it before when we were doing one of the Gospels, that where it says that the camel going through the eye of the needle would be easier than a rich person to go into the kingdom of heaven. So the point being that it doesn't mean that the rich person does not need to hear about Jesus. It just means it's going to be that much harder because they've got that much more sense of security, or seeming security, where they have maybe the pomp and the no power kind of thing, right? But we understand that everyone needs Jesus. Also, the other thing to point out here, that when we're looking at what's been transpiring here, is that God oftentimes uses these, I guess, these problems, okay, the problems that we face as platforms, using them as a platform to be able to um, move along his plan and what he's trying to do. And so the last thing I want to point out, kind of on the same thing, is that we need to recognize and remember that sometimes things that look like a setback in our lives, maybe God's set up for a broader influence, for something bigger, for something better, for something else. Right? It's whatever is going to be part of His plan. If we are call Him Savior and Lord, then that means we have to trust His plan. And I think about in my own life and your lives as well, that there are often times where we have to trust the plan of God through those things. Anyways, next week we continue on. Paul is going to have that chat with Agrippa and kind of share things. We're going to hear the story again of what happened with Paul, and we're going to hear some different news again about some things. So it's interesting every time we hear the story of what happened with Paul and Jesus on the Damascus Road, that there's some new information that comes out. But just another reminder to put on notifications, and that way you I'll put it in the comment section right here, and then you can that way change the things so that in the future, as soon as this thing goes on, then you would be ready to go. But my goodness, it's 7 o'clock always. It just comes so quickly. So I just want to leave you with some interesting wisdom. And I was reflecting on this just the other day, and I thought I would share this with you. That when you think about it, phonetic isn't. Think about that. Until next time, God bless you. Go in peace. Can't wait to get together again soon. Bye.